so to say. He is spreading the elixir of life to everybody so selflessly. I pray God that God gives him more power, more inspiration to keep going with this great work that he is doing. Mr. Jagannath, in fact, had asked me to end my talk with a couple of lines from one of my poems. Then I got an idea, why not begin my talk with one or two lines from my poem called Maya Morphine. The poem goes thus. It says, "The body is but a medium for the seekings of the soul, but the body seems to have seekings of its own." The point is that we have been endowed, human beings have been endowed with a body which is so amazing in its mechanics, self-sustaining and self-powered, and it can achieve almost everything. Vivekananda rightly said, all the powers of the universe are within this body. It is we who close our eyes and cry that there is darkness. People often call me for workshops, or for personality development or motivational workshops, and ask me, and I often ask them, what is it that you're looking from this workshop? And they say, we want to develop self-confidence or self-esteem. Then I ask them, you tell me what is the self, and I will give you the confidence. Because this whole concept of self is something that we have neglected. We are all the time putting our energies outward, trying to understand the world, trying to understand technology, trying to understand other people. Very little time is spent within us to understand what this human body is capable of and what it is made up of. Self-awareness is the key to success. Self-awareness is the key to a contented living. Self-awareness is the key to good interpersonal relationships. Every time I speak about the self, I'm reminded of a parable, a story that my dad told me when I was a little girl. He said that in the middle of nowhere, in a village where no technology had reached, there was a poor farmer who plowed his fields and who grazed his cows, grew a bit of paddy, grew a bit of vegetables, and fed his family. One day, when he was plowing the field, he found something shining, something bright. He did not know what it was, but when he looked into it, he saw, actually that was a mirror, and he saw himself. But since this farmer was ignorant and innocent and did not know what a mirror was, he looked at his own image and thought it must be his father's photograph, because his father had passed away a couple of months ago. He thought God had sent him a gift with his father's keepsake. He felt very bountifully blessed, took that piece, shining piece, and wrapped it in a piece of his turban and hid it in a place in his house. Every morning he used to wake up and look at his dad, pray to him and say, Dad, bless me. Bless my field, bless my cows, bless my family. And happily he went to do his work. As days passed by, the farmer became happier, healthier. His fields gave better crops, his cows gave better milk. And his wife began to think, what is it that he has hidden in that piece of cloth? What is it that is bringing him good luck? I must go and check it out. So one day when the farmer went away to the fields, the wife went and opened that piece of cloth. And lo and behold, she saw a beautiful woman in that piece of shining mirror. Since she did not know how she looked, she thought husband was in love with another woman. She began to cry, rant, and rave, called out to her mother-in-law and said, "Look, look, what your son has done. He's in love with another woman. No wonder he seems happier these days." And she began to cry inconsolably. The mother-in-law came and took this piece of mirror and looked at herself. And since she also did not know how she looked, she said, "Are, ee mudki hindi akbitar niva. Why has he fallen in love with this old woman?" Thus went on the story and the fight between the farmer, his mother, and the wife, all because they did not know how they looked, and they did not know that it was the piece of mirror reflecting their own image. Today, we have enough mirrors everywhere. We have mobiles which can take selfies, hundreds and thousands. But it is not this body that we are talking about. It is the inner working of the body that we do not know. And until we know what this body comprises of, we will not be able to have a successful life, a healthy life, a life which can reach the pinnacles of success and heights of happiness and prosperity. Hence, I came up with this workshop called the Pancha kosha system of self-awareness. The Indian scriptures have beautifully described the body as comprising of 5 layers or 5 bodies or 5 sheets. In fact, it is in the, Jagannath started this entire session with a prayer from Taittiriya Upanishad, and that is where in the Brahmananda Valli portion of the Taittiriya Upanishad, the Pancha kosha has been explained to us. It says that the human body is made up of 5 layers: the Annamaya kosha, the Pranamaya kosha, the Manomaya kosha, the Vijnanamaya kosha, and the Anandamaya kosha. Now let us see what each of them mean and how we can bring them all to a tandem, because yoga just does not mean asanas. Yoga means union or yoking of the body, the soul, the mind, and the Brahman or the Atman that is within us. Only then we can have an integrated, comprehensive, and coordinated life that we are all wanting to reach. So what is this Annamaya kosha? It is called the food body. We all know that this flesh, the blood, the skeleton, the bones that our body is made up of is powered by the food that we ingest. And hence, this external body is called the Annamaya kosha. It is all known to us that we have to eat good food, we have to nourish it, we have to do exercises, we have to keep the body in good condition, because after all, the body is the temple of the soul. And until this temple is in order, the soul cannot, come out in its most resplendent form. But unfortunately, today yoga has been set aside, and we live in a consumeristic world where bhoga is the mantra by which we live. Just look at the advertisements on television. Advertisements are about food, advertisements are about clothes, advertisements are about luxuries, advertisements are about cosmetics, everything to do with the body, to pamper, to indulge, and to satiate the body needs is what the consumeristic society looks for. What we have to, in the yoga format of living, think that body is a medium for greater things. It's not an end in itself. Patanjali Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra has mentioned Ashtanga. It's so beautiful, actually. The Taittiriya Upanishad speaks about the Pancha kosha system, and Patanjali talks about the Ashtanga Yoga, and each of these premises that he has put forth in the Yoga Sutra is about how we can develop one kosha at a time. So the first kosha which we are talking about, the first layer that we are talking about is the Annamaya kosha. And Patanjali says that this body needs asanas. And they need yama and niyama. So what is this yama and niyama that he is talking about? That is exactly what we are not having in today's world. Yama is control. Yama means satya. Yama means ahimsa. It means brahmacharya. It means, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. So, yama is having control over the body and indulging only in things that are useful in developing our inner self. The next thing that he talks about is niyama. Niyama means to have saucha, that is cleanliness of the body and cleanliness of the mind. Santosha, that is contentment, and not have too many bodily desires, not have too much of hankering for satiating the bodily desires. Apart from yama and niyama, Patanjali talks about asanas, which are so imperatively important for developing this body, strengthening it, maintaining it, and keeping it in healthy condition. The next kosha that we talk about is called the Pranayama kosha. This is a beautiful kosha that has been given by the Indian philosophy or the Indian thought system to the world, because the Western world does not speak about the vital energies that the Indian scriptures talk about. The Indian scripture says that there are panchavayus or panchapranas that are the vital energies which are required to power this entire body. So which are these 5 pranas that they talk about? One, of course, is prana. Prana is a main generic term as well as a subdivision. So prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. So these are the 5 vital energies that the Indian scripture talks about. What are these? Let us look. It has been said that all the functions of the body which are below the navel are powered by apana. All the functions that are there between the navel and the heart, like the digestion, is powered by samana. All the functions that are above the heart and in the throat are taken care by the upward movement is taken care by the udana, and vyana is the circulation, the nervous system that is there in the body, which is prevalent all over the body, is taken care by vyana. So these are the functions of the various pranas. The Western science calls these functions as autonomous nervous system. What does the word autonomous mean? Autonomous means something that happens without our consciousness, something that happens unconsciously, something that is happening with no control from us. It is happening continuously. But the Indian science says that these are not autonomous. Prana has to be controlled. Once we learn to control the prana, we can have well-being both of the body and the mind. breath, once we become aware of our breath, once we silence our mind and look inwards towards our breath movement, we become aware of the other four vital energies that power our body. Let me give you a very simple example and explain to you why these vital energies are a bridge between the body and the mind. For a long time, Western science did not know about psychosomatic disorders, but the Indians knew about this many, many years ago. They knew that any kind of imbalance in the mind leads to an imbalance in the pranas. Any kind of imbalance in the body leads to an imbalance in the prana and the mind. And if we can control the prana, we can control the body and the mind. So, whenever we are afraid, when our mind is afraid, when our mind is stressed, what happens? Our breathing becomes faster. Whenever we are stressed or worried, our digestion becomes sluggish. Sometimes we have constipation, sometimes we have loose motions. This is because the mental state is having an effect on the function of the pranas. And the corollary also is true. It is not only that the mind has an impact on the pranas, but if the pranas are controlled, the mind can be under our control. After all, Bhagavad Gita rightly says that the mind is our friend and at the same time our enemy. So a mind that is controlled becomes our friend, and a mind that is not controlled becomes our enemy. That leads us on to the next kosha. So first we had the Annamaya kosha, that is the food body that comprises of our flesh, blood, circulation, bones, the skeletal system, etc. Then we moved on to the functions of the body, so-called in the Western system, the autonomous nervous system, or the Pancha pranas by the Indian thought system. Next, we move on to the Manomaya kosha, that is the mind. What is this mind? The mind is like a yajna, and all the panchendriyas, the five sense organs, are like the yajniks who are continuously putting ahuti into the thing. We are seeing things, we are listening to things, we are tasting things, we are touching things, and the mind is bombarded by all the sensory inputs that come through these five sense organs. So this mind is in fact continuously in a state of flux, and we believe that we should calm the mind, but the very nature of mind is to be in a state of unrest. So how do we calm the mind? Because if the mind is calm, the pranas function well, and the pranas function well, the body is sound and healthy. Let us take an example. This mind is like a pond. Every thought that comes into the mind is like a ripple. And whenever there are positive thoughts, the ripples are small. Whenever there is a negative thought, the ripples become waves. More the negativity, larger the waves, and soon there will be a tsunami in the mind. When this mind is in this state of agitation, the soul or the potential that is there within each one of us is unable to reflect out completely. Like a pond, if there's a moon and a calm pond, you can see the reflection of the moon in all its resplendence. Suppose there are ripples and waves in the pond, the reflection of the moon is distorted, it is dissipated, it is not clear. Similarly, within each one of us is a power, and if the power has to shine forth, the mind has to be calm. Our sages and seers, our scriptures, our smritis, our shrutis, were such sound psychologists. They knew exactly how the mind functions. That is why they said that if the mind has to be calm, we should shun the Shadvairis, because Shadvairis cause tsunamic proportion of waves in the mind. Which are these Shadvairis? Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, Lobha. These are the 6 enemies of the mind. And hence they told us keep away from these because they cause agitation in the mind. So how do we control this mind? We understood that the body can be controlled by yama, niyama, and asana. We understood that the Pancha pranas can be brought under control by pranayama. So how do we control the manomaya kosha? Patanjali moves on to say that pratyahara is the main recipe for controlling the mind. What is pratyahara? Pratyahara is to keep the sense organs away from the external and take them in for some time. Not to indulge in sensory perceptions for some time. Sometimes people ask me, what is this? This world has been made so beautiful. There is such good food, such good places, such good clothes. And what do you mean by saying we should not enjoy all this? What do you mean by saying that the mind, it is an enemy of the mind to enjoy this beautiful world? No, nobody said that we should not enjoy the world. It is like having a plate full of rasgullas, maybe 15-20 rasgullas in a plate. Eating one rasgulla is good. It makes you happy. Eating 2 rasgullas is not very good, but still it makes you happy. Just imagine if you were to uncontrollably devour 10 to 15 rasgullas, you would end up with indigestion. Similarly, the mind too, when it has been continuously bombarded by sensory perceptions, goes into a state of indigestion. And we need to have pratyahara, that is to shut our sensory organs and look within for some time so that this indigestion of the mind is cleared and the mind becomes calm, composed, and capable of reflecting the immense power that is there within us. How can we make negative things into positive is a big question. But the answer is very, very simple. One single word called acceptance can change our perspective, our perception of the world. Let me give you a very simple example. Suppose you were climbing on a mountain and suddenly there was some kind of a landslide and you got stuck on a precipice. The fall down was real deep and there was no way you could climb down and you were standing in that precarious cliff. When some people came by to rescue you, they brought a makeshift tarpaulin and said, we will hold this tight. You jump from the cliff onto this tarpaulin. But then you say, no, I don't have the guts. I'm afraid I can't jump. No matter how much they try to encourage you, your fear does not leave you. Why? Because you have not accepted the situation. Let us take another scenario. Suppose you've taken a holiday and you decide to do bungee jumping. You pay money and you do bungee jumping because it is an adventure sport and you want to have the thrill, you want to enjoy that fear that comes with bungee jumping. You're willing to pay thousands of rupees to do this adventure sport. What is the difference between jumping here from the cliff to rescue yourself and jumping from the cliff for fun? The only difference is acceptance. Here you did not accept, but there you accepted and went forward to enjoy this adventure jumping. Similarly, when you accept that somebody is better than you, it becomes admiration. When you don't accept somebody is better than you, it becomes jealousy. When you accept accept other people's beliefs, it becomes tolerance. When you don't accept other people's beliefs, it becomes hatred. When you accept that there are things that you have to learn from others, it becomes happy living, togetherness, brotherhood. When you don't accept, it becomes divisive and separatist. And people start having quarrels on beliefs, ideologies. So, acceptance of other people, acceptance of your own self is the magic word for making negativity into positivity. So, thus, we have talked about the Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha. Now, next we move on to the Vijnanamaya Kosha. What is Vijnanamaya Kosha? It is the intellect, the Vishesha Jnana that we have. Because the mind is continuously bombarded, but unfortunately, we do not know which is good for us, which is not good for us. The mind is not able to, decipher or make out what is good for us and what is not good for us. It is the intellect that has to play a role here and tell us, do this, don't do this. So, Vishesha Jnana, the one that directs our mind, is the intellect. Now, this whole, Pancha koshas are hierarchically built so beautifully. Body is the grossest. That is, it is the stula sharira. It is the grossest. As we move in, we move from gross to subtle. So Pranamaya kosha is subtler than the body. Manomaya kosha is subtler than the Pranamaya kosha. And the Vijnanamaya kosha is subtler than